I left Blackwater because I was tired of getting shot at and running away. You know, for all the rep they have of being cowboys and whatnot, our job was not to stay in engaged protracted firefights.
Yeah.
And I could see, like I drove through the Nusser Square ambush 5 minutes before it happened. We reported unusual activity there. I was a federal witness that never got called for that because the defense thought they had it in the bag. I just had this feeling that the State Department was going to throw us under the bus, and they did.
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Tyr Symank. It's a hell of a name.
It's a hell of a name. Hell of a legacy.
So you're a Green Beret.
Yep.
You're a piece of headgear.
Yeah. Fuzzy, hot piece of headgear.
You work in charity stuff now as well. You've done a lot of cool shit, but we'll get into all of that. Let's start with where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Oregon, all over the Willamette Valley.
Those are where my favorite Pinots come from. Willamette Valley Pinots are the best in the world, in my opinion.
The Grigio, I believe it's.
I mean, there's a bunch of different ones up there, but I particularly like just that region.
Yeah.
For Pinots.
I was actually I went to high school in a rural area outside Salem, which is just on the edge of that wine country. Yeah.
What was that like? Depressing?
Well, there's a lot of rain, but you don't really know that you're born into depression if you don't know anything else.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
at what age did you see the sun for the first time?
It was actually after I enlisted and got stationed in Texas for 4.5 years. I was like, I got to Fort Hood and I was like, I don't understand why there's no coffee shops and women are wearing sundresses and not flannel.
Yeah.
It was a culture shock for me.
Was that the first time, not that you had been out of Oregon, but the first time you really lived anywhere else?
Yeah.
And, what was it like growing up there?
In Oregon?
Yeah.
Well, you know that I'm definitely dating myself here, but you know that scene in Austin Powers where he's talking about summers in Bruges and his dad making outrageous claims with the question mark and whatnot.
Yeah.
It was similar to that. In the fact that my dad was a stripper as a single dad with me in a club called The Chase in Beaverton. And his day job was building houses. But he also made outrageous claims of like being a fully trained ninja.
Oh, a ninja, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't run into a whole lot of ninjas. Chris Farley withstanding.
Right.
Notwithstanding.
Yeah, but I mean, he had the whole outfit, and, we'd run through the West Hills of Portland on early Saturday mornings with our katanas and throwing stars at trees.
Was that part of his stripper routine? Ninja costume that comes on?
It should have been, but it was
that seems
not.
like a fucking
He did the
missed
construction worker
opportunity.
thing. And,
I see.
Yeah.
So was his day and his night job.
Right, yeah, swinging that hammer.
Well dressed for the job you want, that's what they say.
And then my stepdad was a Quaker pastor.
Oh,
so
saw the full
I
gamut
grew up with the whole yin and yang thing there. And
that's pretty weird.
Yeah, unique.
What's the deal with having weird ass dads and being in the special operations community? Either absent, abusive, or weird. It's one of those three almost always.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
It is definitely a thing. I didn't know until I went through a rather robust mental health journey earlier this year that abuse is very common among the special operations community.
Yeah, that's really common from a sociological standpoint, and I think the thing that's most indicative of success in the special operations community from a physiological standpoint isn't muscle or intelligence or stamina. It's the ability to.
I'm right here. I got it.
Yeah, no, it's the ability to burn cortisol more rapidly than other people.
That's actually a proven thing, like a peer-reviewed Harvard.
It's like 75.
Study.
Like special operators are 75% more efficient at burning cortisol.
Yeah, there's a peptide, neuropeptide Y, that was studied. This is like 20 years ago. That they did a study on SEER students from different backgrounds, and they found that special operations as a whole had a higher level of neuropeptide Y, and Army Special Forces in particular had a particularly high level of neuropeptide Y. And what that peptide does is allow the individual to ramp up and recover to a baseline faster.
Right. Yeah. So if you do like cognitive behavioral therapy, you'll and I see that because a lot of people in this audience probably either have or will at some point. You'll see it's kind of like it's a scale, and in the middle is 0, and you go all the way down to -10 and up to +10.
Yeah.
Right. And the doc will try to put you on that scale somewhere, right?
Right.
Basically, like, with a series of questions. How do you react to this? How do you react to this? And tell me a story. It's like, okay, your baseline's probably about here, right? And one of the things that CBT wants to do is to bring you as close to 0 as possible, so you're not too depressed and not too anxious, right? And the second stage of it is to prevent something called catastrophizing, which is where everything. It can go either way on the scale. Either the smallest thing depresses you, or the smallest thing enrages you, right?
Yeah, right.
So you want to like they use CBT to train people to do that, and it can be effective over time. But some people just have, I guess you could call it a natural inclination, but that's not strictly speaking true, because it's the result of stimulus in your childhood typically, which is one of the things that makes dealing with post-traumatic stress as an operator or gunfighter quite a bit more complicated. And one of the things that we've swung and missed on over the years is that it's compounded trauma from childhood most of the time, right? So we just look at, like, there's this stereotype or archetype or trope about like Forrest Gump. Bubba's head's in your lap and he's dying, and you're making him promises, and it scars you for the rest of your life or whatever. But that's not really how it is. It's mostly prolonged exposure to extreme stress, right?
Yeah.
So that cortisol capability keeps you operational when a normal person would have to step off the line, and it compounds and compounds and compounds.
Yeah, not only does it compound, but it's also addictive.
Sure, yeah. I mean, why it's addictive is something that I would really like to understand more.
I would too.
Is it addictive because chemically, physiologically it's addictive, and our body is using reward mechanisms to that end, or is it addictive because I can do it and you can't? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's like, you see somebody with a special skill or something, and they just want to do it all the time. Like, I remember, this is kind of a silly example, but I remember I think it was season 5 or 6 of Mad Men, he married that girl, the young secretary, and she spoke French.
Spoiler, I didn't.
Yeah, it's 30 years ago, bud. Catch up. She speaks French, and they just tried to wedge it into the show every opportunity they got, right? And I'm sure she had something to do with that. Just really fucking annoying, to be honest. But everybody knows somebody like that. It's probably one of those two things, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I like to understand why things are the way they are, but
yeah. I like to pick things apart also, and when things don't make sense to me via an algorithm or mechanically, And I never thought I was that type of person, but being a special forces medic, I don't know if I was that type of person before, or I just had to train myself to be that type of person in order to succeed, because that is a high attrition school.
Yeah, it's the highest, I believe. Echo's pretty rough too.
Echo, yeah, but it is.
But if you're smart, if you're inclined towards engineering and stuff, you'll be fine in Echo. It's just people that aren't meant to be there, which they do a pretty good job of not sending retards to Echo school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
not even retard. That's a very difficult school to go through. You got to be pretty smart to get through that one.
Yeah, and it was harder back in the day when they had to learn Morse code. I think Evan was probably in the last class that had to learn Morse code.
Really?
Yeah.
When was that? 96?
No, it was like 02.
Oh, was that late? I thought. Oh, he joined in 90s, but
he was only like 6 months ahead of me in the Q course, I think.
Well, let's get into that. What made you decide to join the military in the first place?
College money. College money and TRICARE. Yeah. So that whole Quaker thing, one of the basic tenets there is pacifism. I never thought I was going to be in the military at all, but I was drawn to adventure. I wanted to. I did a little bit of small town freelance journalism in high school, and I did the high school paper, and I was a photo editor of the yearbook and whatnot. Back in the day when we still had dark rooms and whatnot. So I was going to go into journalism, but I was drawn to. I wanted to be like a combat photojournalist, which probably says something about where I ended up. But I dropped out of college. I was in a limited entry journalism program, And I dropped out of college to be a lift operator at Mount Hood because you got a free season pass with that.
Free season pass to what? To the slopes?
Yeah, the slopes. Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of where my priorities were. But snow doesn't last forever.
Yeah, sure.
And the paycheck goes away with it. So I loaded trucks for RPS, which is now FedEx Ground, for a little bit. And then I enlisted for $20,000 of college money.
And how'd that go for you?
Well,
what did you enlisted as a
tanker?
Tanker.
Yeah.
Wait, tanker was 19 kilo back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still. I guess that's the one that's kind of maintained consistency.
It's still
because there was mech infantry back then too, 11 Mike, but I don't think that went away in like the 90s at some point. I think. Maybe
no, I think it was
before.
Later than that.
Was it later?
So everybody at Fort Hood that was 11 series was automatically 11 Mike, and that was a big point of contention because nobody could get Ranger School slots because they were mechanized. They didn't choose to be mechanized; they got mic'd because they went to Fort Hood. But the reason I chose tanks was because the coolest job on the mountain was a snowcat operator, and I figured if I could drive an Abrams, when I get out in 2 years, I could come back and be part of Delta Force. That's what they called their snowcat crew.
Stolen Valor.
Yeah. The special mission of unit of Mount Hood.
Well, look, somebody's got to have one. Yeah. So you're a tanker.
Yeah, but I never really did.
What year is it?
I enlisted in 95.
95.
Yeah, but when I got to Fort Hood, I was a newlywed. I really didn't have a lot of interest in the military even then. I just wanted to hang out with my wife and do my time and get out and go back to school. And they were recruiting for this horse-mounted unit straight out of reception. And so I raised my hand for that. I went and did the tryout, and there was a lot of getting yelled at and double timing everywhere and doing like a ranch-style PT test. But I was straight out of OSET. So I was an E-nothing. I just figured that's what the Army was like. So it was just water off a duck's back, which is ironic because I dropped out of University of Oregon. But this little snare drum there. You can put that in later.
Yeah.
Post edit.
What horseback unit? What the fuck are you talking
First
about?
Cavalry Division.
What is it? Third Army's got one in DC that's part of the old guard.
Oh yeah.
Or whatever the fuck. But that's the only one that I know of.
So,
like even the guys from the what group was that? Was that 5th group that was on horseback over in Afghanistan? Even those guys, that wasn't.
There was only one of those guys that actually.
Yeah, there wasn't like a whole big fucking train up or anything for that.
Don't get me
shit.
started on that's 12 strong.
Yeah. But this is an actual horseback unit. Is it still active in the military?
Yeah.
What's it called?
The 1st Cavalry Division Horse Cavalry Detachment.
And what's the purpose of this? Is it ceremonial?
Oh man, I used to know this by heart. To promote esprit de corps.
So ceremonial.
Blah blah blah. Yeah, it's a literal dog and pony.
It's like the softball team for the fucking.
Well, yeah, except you don't break your ribs or get stomped on.
That's true. Yeah. Well, horses are pretty good about not stomping you. Typically,
stepped on a few times.
Yeah.
I've broken a lot of bones in that unit.
I've had my foot stepped on quite a bit, but nothing major really.
Yeah.
They're kind of clumsy, but they try not to step on. They don't want to roll. They don't want to break their leg.
I trained up this one horse. I think he was retired just a couple years ago. His name at the unit was NYC. I called him Hank because I thought that name was stupid. But I trained him up from being a green 2-year-old to being the guidon bearing horse, which if you think about flags going up and down next to a horse's head, next to a prey animal, that's actually a big deal. But he had this one white sock on his left rear foot. And we called that his tatering foot because that's the one he would always kick with.
So you just got to like circle to the other direction.
Yeah. Well, we came back from block leave once, and it's Texas, but it still gets cold, and we're going to a change of command ceremony at division headquarters. We had to ride across post to get there, and he was like kind of fake bucking a little bit. He was just bowing up. So I got off, and I unhooked one side of the reins, and I'm lunging him to the left, and I got just a little bit too far behind him. And he kicked me square in the chest.
Oh, in the chest. Damn, dude. That's a commotio cordis threat right there. You got to be careful.
Boy, man. Yeah. So
my dad caught one in the ass for one of ours one time. he circled around, and she was just in a mood that day, making noise. You can tell. You can usually tell when they're in a fucking mood. She was making noise, and she didn't get him good. She didn't like. It wasn't both feet. It was just like one, but straight back. It wasn't like a mule kick. Or, I'm sorry. It wasn't a cow kick. It was a mule kick,
full
like straight back, and lifted. And my dad was a big dude, probably 250. This one ass cheek lifted him 5 or 6 feet. And was like, oh shit. All right. So these things are pretty strong.
Yeah, that was probably the beginning of my combatives training, learning that being in close is better than being at full extension.
Yeah, no shit, yeah. So you join this horse unit and get kicked a bunch, and then at some point you become a
so I was out there from E1 to E5.
Okay.
I re-enlisted twice in that unit.
Was there a bonus to re-enlist?
No.
I didn't think so.
This is Clinton era, man. There was money for anything.
Yeah, they were doing 15-year early outs for the Marine Corps, and I don't know if the Army did it, but the Marine Corps.
The first Green Beret I ever met was a 15-year retiree. He was a dependent at Fort Hood.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I went through my first divorce. Life changed, and my work ethic in a unit that requires a high degree of work ethic, which was great. But I was going through shit, and I got called in the first sergeant's office, and they basically grounded me from some of my duties.
You're a farrier.
I was a farrier apprentice. I enlisted to go to Oklahoma Farrier College, and I got shafted out of it, and so I was salty about that. That kind of chipped into all this as well. So he said, "You have anything to say?" I said, "Yeah, I want to leave." He goes, "The office?" I said, "No, the unit." He said, "Okay." And 2 weeks later, I was in 2-8 Cav for the first, wearing BDUs for the first time in like 4 years.
What did you wear at the horse unit?
Wranglers and a blue work shirt with stay right rank.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So now you're in 2-8, and what happens?
They learned that I know how to do S1 work because I did it for the horse cav, and we were part of division headquarters, so I knew everybody up at headquarters as well. So they put me as a squad leader in HHC, and I was in charge of like the armor, the mail clerk, the Seaburn guy, the chaplain's assistant, who was the biggest piece of shit I've ever met, by the way. And that seems to be a common thing. And then all the S1 people. It was just kind of a slap in the face, like a reality slap in the face, like this is what the regular Army is like. Coming from a unit where it was all volunteer, it was like an airborne unit without being airborne, Yeah. You had to want to be there. You could leave at any time, but if you didn't like the work ethic, then you went somewhere else. And I really got to see what shit Army leadership is like, and what it looks like when people are just enlisting and biding their time and whatnot. And the only thing going on at the time was Bosnia.
Yeah. I mean, who all was rotating out there? It wasn't all the units. I know
2-8 went, but that was like right before I got there.
There were a couple of cab units that went. The 82nd went. I think 3rd ID was the other one that went on regular rotations.
Yeah,
but most people didn't. Well, I guess I say unfortunately. I don't know a whole lot of people that got into any real contact out there. My buddy was he was a sniper in 3rd ID. He was in one of the, I can't remember which unit it was, but he was on the battalion scout team. And they got into some stuff, but the line guys, there wasn't really a whole lot going on. My little brother's in 11B, and he just did a tour over there a year and a half ago. What are they even doing now? Just hanging out?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, most of the
he's
people...
deployed again right now, but it's for... I think he's in Poland now.
Most of the people that I know that deployed over there would tell me that it was like... It was like... There were parts... They would go out on ops or patrols from time to time where some shit would go down, but mostly they were just kind of hanging out, to be honest.
So when I got into SOF, I started hearing some stories from friends of mine that had been in SOF longer than I had. Like one of my classmates in the medic course was reclassing from 18 Bravo, and he was a weapons guy in 10th group, so that was his AO. And he was telling me about getting stitched straight up, like he was doing a dismounted patrol in the hills, and And
by what, a PKM or some shit?
either PKM or an AK. It was some sort of 7.62 variant, fully automatic rifle, and his front plates saved his life.
Shit.
Yeah.
So you're in 2.8 and it sucks. So you decide. I mean, sucks is like not the right way to say it. It's just like, all right, this is.
Yeah.
I don't want to be told what to do 24 hours a day.
I wanted to be around people that wanted to do their job. Is really what it was. And
I mean, that's why I went to the 82nd.
Yeah.
Like that, the best advice I got was go to an airborne unit because everybody wants to be there. Like,
the horse cav for not being a combat unit was very. I mean, when I got to my first ODA, half my.
I mean, it's an affinity group. Everybody loves horses, or something about it they enjoy, right?
It was a lot of hard work, and it was a lot of esprit de corps, and there's a lot of people took pride.
Usually, those two
their
things
work.
go together, to be honest, which is a
Yeah.
mistake that the military makes a lot. Like how much hard work did you do in 2.8? You know what I mean?
I didn't.
It's
So
like-
how hard it is it to show up to the office on time?
Or hang out in the motor pool all day and do maybe 2 hours of work. That fucking sucks,
Yeah.
man. That drains the life out of you.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing is harder than one of the hardest jobs out there is having a job that has no work.
Even the days sitting at Green Ram for 10 fucking hours waiting to
God.
do something
Yeah.
are the worst days in my
Yeah.
military career.
Sitting
I would rather
rigged
be
up.
in war than that shit. I would
Yeah.
rather be in war. And this is how you know how bad it sucks. You're out at like Area J or something, or Range 68 or something, and you hear the gut truck coming. You're like, oh, finally,
Yeah.
something to do.
Yeah. Right.
God damn it.
Yeah.
And it's like ultra processed packaged food, and we're still
Yeah.
like, let's have it, man.
Yeah. So bad. For
Yeah,
you.
it sucked. So,
Yeah.
so you decide to go to selection.
Yeah.
What made you choose medic?
So when I that 21 days of SFAS, I know there's the 2 weeks in hell on TV, but I went when there was actual team week and whatnot, and selection changes here and there. But when I went through, that was probably in the military, physically and mentally, the hardest thing I had done up to that point. And when they separated the 21-day non-selects from the 21-day selects, there was enough people called out that we weren't really sure which group was which.
Were they peering people out then as well? Okay.
Yeah. We had 2 people peered off my my selection ODA. Yeah, I still wonder what happened to them. 'Cause physically, they cut it.
Yeah. Well, that's why Delta does it the way they do. Put the actual let the actual team go fucking look at people up and down.
It's funny you say that because the guy that was on my selection team, that kind of was the instigator of, hey, we need to vote this guy out, and we need to vote this guy out. One of them was pretty obvious. The other one, I was like, really? He's like, yeah, this, and this. I'm like, okay, I'll go along with that. He ended up retiring as a E9 from the unit later
Makes
on.
sense.
So,
I mean, there is a green team and Delta selection. There's a science to that is very good.
yeah.
They the attrition rate is still high,
Yeah.
right? But you don't see a whole lot of riffraff after the fact.
Yeah.
And
Have
that's
you
just
read
not true.
Have you read Tom Satterley's book?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, he's got some fucking stories.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, so you would look, I think the average, even military person would look at a workup on a guy like Tom and be like, there's no way that fucking dude's making it in there. But that's exactly the kind of dude that they're looking for, right?
Yeah.
But you never know. Like they don't, that one is like, they do a really good job of it. And I wish they would share some of that information, not to the general public.
Yeah.
But there's like, I think there's some, I was talking to Tim Kennedy about this the other day. The people that run unit selection and 24th ASOS unit selection as well, and then, RIP, RAS, whatever the fuck they're calling that now, SFAS, MARSOC, and all that. I think, and BUDS, obviously, I think there should be, I don't think there should be. I would really like to have a bunch of those people in a room together and talk about how we go about choosing a president.
Yeah.
Right? Because a popularity contest is clearly not the right way to do that.
Right.
But assessing somebody's talents when they haven't actually done the thing yet is a skill that really only the military possesses, in my opinion. Or at least they're the only ones that do it at a high rate. Because you look at stock traders have a really high turnover rate. Lawyers have a really high turnover rate. Like junior associates to junior partner is the highest attrition rate for them, right?
I was just thinking about that, how that would apply like in pro sports, but even that doesn't really work because those guys have been playing college ball or whatever when they get scouted, right? And
even then, the attrition rate is super high.
Yeah.
There's only 2 rounds of the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Which there's only 15 guys on each team, but the NFL draft, if you get drafted later than the 4th round, I think the later in the round you get drafted,
the more likely you are to end up at a January 6th rally.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Like what? I don't remember what that guy's name is now.
I don't. Antoine. Antoine.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. I think there's some institutional knowledge there. Maybe it wouldn't translate, but I do think there's probably some methodology there that would be very informative for ordinary folk.
Yeah. Well, that neuropeptide Y thing I was talking about.
That's probably part of it. I don't know if that would relate to being president or not, although it does seem like it would have some effect, right?
The only thing I've seen in statistics aside from everybody being male up to this point, there hasn't been a president elected that was shorter than 6 foot.
That's not true. One was 5'4". Hold on.
In his wheelchair?
No, it was James Madison. He was 5'4".
Oh.
But he's the only one.
Okay.
Yeah, usually it's and I think William Henry Harrison was like 5'8" or something like that. And actually, Ulysses S. Grant, I think, was only 5'9". But it is common to be.
Yeah.
Jefferson was tall. I mean, Washington. I think Adams was kind of short too. But Jefferson was tall. Washington was like 6'3" or some shit like that. And then Lincoln was 6'6".
I didn't realize Trump was as tall as he is.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. He's got a weird posture though.
Yeah. I've never met him. I've met his son. And
which one? Junior?
Yeah,
Junior's pretty tall. He's like 6'2".
Yeah.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
At any rate, so you're a medic.
Yep.
And
yeah, so I picked medic because up to that point, the selection was I was riding high. Basically, I had a runner's high, like an endorphin rush.
So you just picked the hardest one?
So I picked the hardest one.
Asshole. But that's, what are you going to do? You got to do it at some point. And
academically, though, I made it all the way through the medic course. I recycled small unit tactics for land nav, and I'm actually glad I did because I would rather have really learned it instead of just barely getting by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah,
that is a skill.
It is. I mean, for most people, I've met a couple of people that are just naturally good at it.
Yeah.
But for most people, it's a kinesthetic learn, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
You have to, especially for the most important part of land nav to me is terrain association, especially if you're in a unit that does like infill, like halo infill. Shit happens in the air, right? Either the bird or you dropping out of the fucking sky, something crazy is going to happen. Just look at the vignettes from World War II. Nobody landed where the fuck they were supposed to. But looking at a mountainside and then looking at your map and being like, that's where I am, is probably the most important skill for land nav that you could ever have.
North Carolina, as you know, it doesn't have mountains
shit
necessarily, but it does have changes in vegetation.
That's true. Yeah,
very abrupt. And I got to the point where I could read that in the dark.
That's way harder.
If it got leafy, I knew that I was heading into a draw, and I didn't want to.
No, I've on the land nav course for EIB, actually, we had a couple of guys. You know that big ass ditch in Area J? That's like, so it's kind of, there's the fire breaks all go this way,
right? And
then there's that staging area at the front where you measure off your pace count and all that bullshit. I don't know if you ever went there. Because you guys did it on the back end of the base.
We did it off base.
Yeah.
Hoffman.
Ours was all there, and it's true. Even on that closed range, there's like a giant fucking ravine right there. But you can tell it's coming because stuff starts growing up on the trees and shit like that. It's like, all right, cool, you're going into that.
The star course for whether they have it in the Q course or selection, because it kind of goes back and forth. That thing is so nefarious, so infamous that like there's an all Green Beret rock band. They call themselves Scuba Road or something like that, and that's a famous obstacle in the star course.
That's funny.
You're getting wet. Yeah, that thing is no joke.
So what year did you finish school?
The Q course?
Yeah.
So I went to selection in October, November of 01. No, I'm sorry, of 99. And then I finished the entire pipeline April of 03.
Okay.
Long.
Did you do language at Monterey or did you do it local?
No, I did it at Bragg.
What was your language?
Thai.
Okay. So you're a pervert.
Yeah. I wanted
Or you just wanted to go to the Pacific Northwest. Probably,
so
right?
when I went through selection, I was already in the Pacific Northwest because I went to selection when I was active in the first Cav, but I went knowing that there was Alpha Company 1st and 19th in Washington State.
Oh, you were going to go straight to the 19th. You weren't going to
Correct.
active group, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was hitting on. I was TDY at Fort Sam for Fiesta with the horse cav.
Yeah.
And I was hitting on somebody that was sitting in the hot tub at a pool, and then her just ripped the bejesus belt husband gets out from swimming 1,000 laps and sits down next to her, and he's an 18 Delta in 20th group going to PA school, and I had to ask what 20th group was. And that's when I found out that there was SF in the National Guard.
So you were planning on going to the
I was
to first group, I guess.
Peacetime, being a Northwest native, I was kind of tired of Texas at the time.
Yeah.
It's not hard to get tired of Fort Hood.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't riding horses anymore, so.
I mean, there's nothing for you to do in Hood. I mean, you could have stayed around there and been in 19th, I guess, or 20th.
There was no
this
19th.
20th? Oh, there was a 19th back then?
No. The two companies in 19th that are in Texas didn't happen until I was already at E8.
Is it headquartered in Utah? Where is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had Utah. Where was the other one?
There's 9 states. So there's Washington, California. We've got a forensic CBRN unit in Montana. Colorado has a battalion headquarters.
Where in Colorado?
Carson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? It's
like
co-located with 10th?
Yeah. Yep. And then Utah is a battalion headquarters. Used to be 2 battalion headquarters. A battalion headquarters and a company, and then group headquarters and the GSB and whatnot.
And then 20th is like southeast.
20th is mostly south, yeah, except for like
there's one
company in Illinois or
where is that?
I forget.
I think it might be Illinois actually.
Yeah. It's weird. And then you've also got Rhode Island and West Virginia for 19th.
That's 19th. I thought those were 20th for some reason.
No.
Okay. That doesn't make sense geographically, but nothing ever does it?
No, it doesn't.
I mean, 10th Mountain is not anywhere near a
West Virginia's got a battalion headquarters also.
So what was your first deployment after that?
First deployment was within months after graduating.
What was it?
Afghanistan.
It was right after the invasion of Iraq, right? So you went to Afghanistan on OEF2.
Yeah, so I tried to test out in Spanish because A119 is the only Guard SF unit that actually was in the invasion of Iraq.
Was Evan on that one, or was he with the agency already?
No, he was
with 19th.
So that deployment is how everybody in my unit got into the agency. It was actually through Evan.
Yeah.
But
that was that would have been.
They actually denied him. They recruited him, then denied him. But everybody else, because it was for Ground Branch. But they got my old team sergeant, my Charlie, and Jason Everman.
Yeah.
From Nirvana.
Yeah. And Pearl Jam, I guess. As well, right?
Soundgarden.
Didn't he? Oh, Soundgarden. That's right. Yeah. That's really funny.
Yeah.
So that's OEF 2, right? Or is it 3 by then?
I don't know.
I don't remember when the cutoff, because the first one was longer, and then the subsequent
I got to Afghanistan in August of 03.
That probably would have been 3 actually.
Yeah. So it was still fairly early, but it.
What were you guys doing up there? What was your mission? Were you?
It depended on where you were.
Were you training? Well, I mean, you specifically. Were you training NDIG, or were you guys fighting up there? Was it?
So for the first month, I was an AST, area support team, and I was because we had a composite ODA. It was SECO, which is now Texas, but SECO back then was Utah, and they needed 2 ODAs to round them out so they could deploy.
Okay.
So it was 2 composite ODAs from Washington State that went. My team leader at the time is now he's now the Washington State Army National Guard commander. He's a 1-star.
Oh, good for him.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Paul Sellers. Yeah. So it was a composite ODA. We got there because we were the outliers from Washington State. They initially tried to shaft us with AST duty for like 9 months. The entire deployment. And that got crushed. We got sent. We had like 3 different missions, but our first mission was to go up to Mazar Sharif. And back then there was no FOB or anything. There was a rudimentary airfield The Jordanians were running a field hospital there. There was a British PRT in town. That's who we were OpCon to.
Were you guys planting clover fields around your airfields back then? Like, I know a lot of my buddies that did. A lot of my Charlie friends in Afghanistan, especially, who were out somewhere in the fucking middle of nowhere, they would plant clover fields around to keep the dust down.
No.
But some of the areas, it gets enough snow and rain that it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, it was high plains up there. Yeah. We did split team ops. Our initial mission was to prevent civil war happening from Dostum and Atta.
Yeah.
So
is that the Northern Alliance?
Yeah.
Dicks? Yeah.
So
I mean, we had been working with one of those dudes since the 80s, I think, right?
Dostum.
Yeah, was it him?
Yeah.
And but two of the other Northern Alliance commanders got clipped, like, a month before 9/11 or something like that?
Yeah. Well,
that was like the biggest.
line of the Panjshir on
that was,
September 9th.
Yeah, I think it was. Oh, was it 2 days before? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Because there were two commanders that got
dog.
clipped very close before, and everybody looking back was like, oh, that was probably a pretty good indicator that an attack was coming. It's like, yeah. Well, the USS Cole was a good indicator
It's
that an
weird
attack
that I can
was
remember
coming.
his nickname off the top of my head, but in the day he was assassinated and how he was assassinated.
What'd they blow him up?
Yeah. So remember that movie, that Schwarzenegger movie, True Lies?
Sort of. It's from '94, dude. It's a long time ago. That's 30 years ago.
Movie. What special operations operative doesn't know how to fly a Harrier?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So they had an assassination attempt in that movie where this news guy with this big ass camera opened up a gun and a compartment of a gun comes out. Well, they blew him up with a suicide bomber that was disguised as a news camera.
Yeah, cameras are too small for that now.
Yeah.
You'd only take yourself out, probably.
Yeah, what are you going to do? You just blow your wrists off.
I mean, if you had an EFP, maybe you'd have to have something on the back of it to direct the energy. I don't think it would even work.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
if you
So if
just
somebody
toss it
comes to interview with an iPhone that's got a big round back on it,
yeah, concave back, or I guess Israel figured out how to do it without all that, didn't they?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Funny,
I don't give two fucks whether you're Palestinian or Israeli or which side you support on that. But just the tradecraft.
Yeah, it's a good op.
Holy
I mean, it's like
shit.
season 3 of The Wire or season 4 of The Wire. I don't know if you remember
I love
that
Wire,
show,
yeah.
But Lester Holt, not Holt. What
That
the
was
fuck?
Lester Holt.
Lester Holt is from
CNN.
no,
Or NBC.
yeah.
NBC News.
Lester, whatever the fuck his name was, pretended to be a street guy selling phones, burner phones.
Yeah, that's right.
That's essentially what they did.
Yeah.
They fucking got
on a grand scale.
They wedged themselves into an intermediary spot and sold fucking loaded up phones and pagers to people. That's like, man, I know like Hamas is not very good at anything, to be honest. Like they're good at digging tunnels, I guess.
Yeah.
But aside from that, their trade craft sucks. We catch them doing shit all the time. They fucking suck at everything.
Yeah.
But even that is surprising. Like, come on, man. Then again, Iran is pretty incompetent too. Israel snuck a dude in and to put Stuxnet on one of their fucking nuke computers. Like, and the guy apparently had been working there for like 20 years or some shit like that. Yeah.
That's what I pictured Iran doing.
Yeah. So anyways, you go on a pretty quick deployment in 2003. Then what happens after that?
Yeah. So I did a lot of shit on that deployment. We did I opened up a clinic, especially as a medic, but we had a lot of autonomy up there, especially being the early days. And being AdCon to different places, Siege of Sodif was like, well, if they say it's okay. Yeah. And my team leader was
who are you getting your ROE from?
I mean, we had
whoever
ROE
you were sliced to?
From
or?
third group, because they were running south, but the Siege of Sodif commander was this guy named Colonel Hurd. He was fucking terrible.
There wasn't a whole lot of ROE back then, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, and there wasn't a lot of oversight either. Like if you could articulate it in your
15-6, or in your op order or whatever.
In your op order, or your sit rep, then it was kind of whatever. But the British PRT commander would tell Paul, now General Paul, I don't know, Paul, sounds a bit dodge, but okay. And we'd just go do whatever it was. And we weren't doing a lot of direct action because our mission up there was weapons cantonment. We had a battalion of ANA, or Kandak, and they were ANA was brand new back then. And we had a huge op fund to keep them going.
When you say keep them going, what do you mean?
I mean, if all your shit is hand me down from Eastern Bloc, there's going to be a lot of maintenance involved.
Yeah, I mean, luckily they were AK-47s and 74s. So
Yeah,
they're a lot more
like
resistant than. Well, this is a Sons
like
of Liberty. You could throw this thing down a mountain and pick it up and shoot it. But like the Colt M4s that we had back in the day, you sneeze on that thing wrong, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, right.
Where's the armor?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's an interesting job to have. Shit.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of logistics involved. You know, I was setting up a clinic. You know, I had to oversee. There's all this stuff that goes into 18 Delta work that nobody really thinks about.
Like giving digital rectal exams to all the guys on your team?
No, we're always thinking about that. And by digital, we mean with fingers. Not,
yeah, not a computer.
Yeah. No, like...
That's what I always... Every time... The first person that ever told me used the phrase DRE to me, and then now anytime I hear Dr. Dre say it in a rap song, I'm like, all I can think about is putting your finger in a dude's
bling,
butt.
Bling, 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 bling. Yeah, no, shit like knowing how many latrines you need per capita.
Yeah. I mean, it's XO bullshit to some degree, right?
Being able to inspect a chow hall. You know, things
again,
like that.
XO bullshit. Which, look at typically, just for those who were never in the military, the executive officer of a company or a battalion or a brigade would typically be in charge of that kind of stuff, but you guys don't have that.
No.
Right?
No, we don't.
Your beans and bullets. I mean, the composition of ODAs have changed over time, right?
But
it's never been like that. It's never been like a line unit like that.
No, everybody's dual-hatted, and an ODA is structured so that it could be a company or battalion level headquarters.
Yeah.
Depending. So that medic is not only expected to be able to run like a battalion level aid station, but he's also expected to be able to run all the S1 tasks for the team. And he's doing everything from veterinary work to basic dentistry, surgery.
That's another thing, the vet stuff. So when we deploy to a new territory, you have to test the animals, and if a certain number of them have certain things, you have to kill everything, right? That's how the infantry operates. I don't know if you guys do that.
We don't, because
that would just be too heavy of a lift, probably.
Yeah, we're going to come in to the G base and say, hey, we want you to fight with us. We're going to supply you, but also we're going to take out everything you live off of.
Yeah.
It's worth the brucellosis risk.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But typically not something that not something that a line unit would do. And then did that change after you guys added the Fox to the lineup? Did he start taking some of the logistics stuff? You would think so.
No. So logistics is run by the 18 Charlie. So all your supply shit, your property book, that's your 18 Charlie. So Zulu is your Zulu. That's your team daddy.
Yeah.
He's overseeing everything. He's the guy that really sets the culture of the team. 18 Alpha is taking orders from higher. And if you're doing split team ops, he'll run half that, and the Zulu will run the other half typically, unless there's a warrant. Because not every team has a warrant.
It's a little more common now, but even now it's not common, I would say. Right?
Yeah, it's more common now because it's been a little more incentivized.
In
like
what way?
Well, back in the
like
day,
financially incentivized.
Yeah, because you would take a pay cut as an experienced E7 18 series. You'd take a pay cut to be a warrant because one, you're coming in as a W01, and two, your special forces pay is going away because officers don't get STAP.
That sucks.
So warrants now, if you're going 18 series 180 Alpha, because you can't come in off the street as a 180 Alpha.
You got to be an E6, right? Before you can transition to
I don't know.
Or maybe it's E5P E6, or something. It's something. You got to be an NCO, I think.
You do have to. You've got to go through a whole sessions board to be a 180 Alpha.
And who sits on that board? Just other warrants?
It's people at regiment.
3s and 4s?
It's people, not only people at regiment, but people at Big Army. Yeah.
Shit, that
I've got
sucks.
one dude right now that has been an E8 just short of forever, and his warrant packet is being held up because his language score isn't current, and it's an Army requirement.
But can't you fix that on the phone? You used to be able to do that on the phone.
No.
You used to be able to call them and just have a quick conversation, and that's the end of it, right?
Yeah. No.
They're paying more attention now. That
Yeah.
sucks.
Well, I mean, when you've got digital records of everything,
Yeah, that's true.
you can't just like erase something.
No.
But
So that's more complicated than most people think of. Like they think of a medic as the way we think of medics, right?
yeah,
But everything is a little bit more complicated there because you're away from the flagpole in most ways. Right?
Yeah.
So you don't have that institutional
you're,
support.
You're essentially like you're a PA that's also an infantry platoon leader.
Yeah, and you're not getting paid as a PA either.
Correct.
Not even close, actually.
Yeah, that's been going around for a long time, just because 18 Deltas are so overqualified for E6 pay.
Yeah,
You
I mean
know?
that's a in most battalions that's a major.
Yeah.
And it's either a major or a captain who's getting ready to become a major.
So they toyed with the idea of making them warrants. They toyed with the idea of making them commissioned officers.
I mean, making them a warrant would lose them money. So fuck that. Why don't they just make a separate pay category? If you're current, like just same way they do with language. If you're current on all these medical skills, you get paid more money. That would make a lot of fucking sense.
18 Delta pay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
So why is that
the problem with special pays, and this is military wide, and I think it was actually CZ that went before Congress and was talking about this a number of years ago. The problem with the special pays is they're good for when guys are in the slots, but as soon as they leave that position or retire, it's like half their pay went away. There is no retirement basis for your special pays. It's all your retirement's based off of your time in service and your pay grade.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I think it would create a lot more competition for that role. A lot of people don't try it because there's no functional difference between a Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo pay-wise, right? But the one that's more highly specialized gets paid more, then you're going to get more participation in it. There's going to be more attrition, too.
Yeah, so there was, and this was approved and then just never happened. There was this graduated pro pay scale for Army SOF. Like, it was applying to Ranger Regiment, it was applying to SF. And it was more in line with, instead of everybody getting a flat rate of SDAP, you were going to get, like 18 Zulus would get more SDAP. If you had done this school, this school, and this school, and, done your PME or...
So like points, like a promotion board kind of?
Yeah, basically.
Base it on that.
But you had to meet these
that's
experience
how,
and education gates.
That's how it works in the Air Force, right? For promotion, not for
right.
not for pay, but... The private sector job, actually, you worked for SOC a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
So I ran SMGI, which is SOC SMG's domestic organization.
So that's actually where I worked.
Yeah.
I was an instructor for him.
Okay, yeah. So I worked in, what was it, Dublin, California?
I was in
East
Hawthorne.
Yeah, I ran all of their private security stuff. So like the California State Lottery.
Yeah.
Morrison Forster Law Firm, Levi's, Gap, E&J Gallo, all that stuff. I ran that whole area.
That makes sense when we were talking about the PI work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a medic, you're doing stuff, you do some instructor stuff for a little while.
Yeah.
Probably in between deployments while you're not active.
I've done a lot of instructor stuff basically any time when I haven't been on range, I've been teaching.
And then you worked for the State Department for a little while.
Yeah.
Did you actually work for the State Department, or is that code for something?
The girl never tells.
Yeah.
But I did do True State for a while. I was Blackwater on the WIPS program for, let's see, 06, almost all of 06, all of 07, and part of 08.
Where were you?
Baghdad.
You were in Baghdad?
Yeah. So I was there for the Nasur Square shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, we were there.
I was there when the Little Birds went down. Actually, I was on leave when that happened.
Yeah. My unit was the first one deployed. Wait, wasn't one of them, was it our colonel that went down in one of those birds? Because he went down in a helicopter crash, but it was in 07. It wasn't 06. When was that? And then he got shot in the ball. I think he got shot. Or maybe he was injured in the helicopter crash and he lost a nut. I don't remember, because we used to call it Operation One Star because he would fuck us over routinely on stuff. And we're like, this dude's just trying to become a general. And then we started calling it Operation One Nut after he lost a testicle.
The only guy I know that's lost a nut is a guy named Jay, and that was Gothic Serpent.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Shit. My unit, I was in 2-3T5 82nd. We were the first ones deployed for the surge. So It was like, and Jared was my JTAC. That's actually how we met. It was December 27th of 06, and they called us like, hey, we're deploying in like a week, so could get back here and get your shit ready.
Yeah.
And the only time we really went over to actual Baghdad, I mean, we were over in Sadr City, so technically, I guess that's part of Baghdad. But the only time we were at Taji, and we would go over to BIOP every now and again. I spent like 2 weeks there with that Task Force Troy counterinsurgency and counter IED school.
Yeah.
This is the most boring shit I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
It's like all they did was take me back to basic you remember in basic when they teach you how to test for mines and stuff with your knife? Like,
yeah.
God damn it,
Yeah.
dude. I'm never going to do this in a gunfight. Are you fucking kidding
Yeah.
me? Just give me some det cord and I'll throw it over this thing and,
Right.
and blow it up, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Anyways, I didn't care for BIOP that much.
Yeah, so I was in the green zone during all those times, but we ran to BIOP all the time.
We did go over to Triple CI.
My
from
dad
time
was
to
in
time.
BIOP back then.
Was he? Yeah. We went over to Triple CI. Actually, I had to do a Zoom. It wasn't even Zoom. I don't know what the fuck it was, to testify for some people we sent up. Like 3 months after our deployment ended, a couple of us had to, and it was like in the middle of the night too, because obviously the time difference. What was it like working for state over there? I mean, people leave you alone at least.
Well, yes and no.
You were doing
Diplomatic
close
security.
personal protection for somebody over there, DipSec.
Yeah, so I was the AIC for the 3 IC of the country. I'm trying to remember his name was Joseph something. So he wasn't the AMBO or the charge of affairs.
Yeah.
He was like the next guy down. So anytime he flew around, I would be with him because 18 Delta status. And then I went to the Little Birds for a little bit. I got fired from that. And then I went to a low-vis team, and that's really where I kind of honed everything. Low-vis team was interesting. We took some tactics. The DSS was learning on the fly back then.
Yeah, people don't know. Like, somebody should do a documentary at some point about DSS, because once Turkey shut down the airspace for the invasion north of Iraq, because we were planning on, the 82nd was planning on flying through that airspace and jumping in to crit and fucking that whole city up, right? They cut us off from that airspace, so instead, a much smaller plane dropped some old school DSS dudes. One of them is two of them are actually buddies of mine, Jimmy Spoo, who's in the fucking SF Hall of Fame, and Fred Pyrie, who is Madeleine Albright's agent in charge in the late 90s. He got done. She left, and he's just like kind of hanging out at DSS waiting for something new to do.
Right.
And it's like, hey, we got to do this thing in Iraq. He's like, oh, give me Jimmy. Everybody hated Jimmy because he's such a cunt, dude. He's like fucking... he's a relentless asshole. Yeah. I think he's still alive, actually. He's old as shit. But we used to do protection details in DC together all the time. So they inserted these guys, small DSS team in northern Iraq, to start getting Kurds together and shit. I'm like, wait, I've never even heard about this. The DSS was up there, but they were there the whole time. Yeah. And then a big part of standing up Green Zone and BIOP too, apparently.
There's some real rock stars in DSS. Yeah. There's also some real bureaucrats.
Yeah, I mean, they put them in charge of the Afghanistan withdrawal, so you see how that went. Yeah,
that went really super good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anything that my friends that are suffering through it right now that are badged agents.
I got some people over there too. Yeah, they're not thrilled. Yeah, obviously. Not thrilled, but it does. There is a bit of there's a bunch of institutional knowledge over there still. Yeah. Unfortunately, those aren't the people that are in charge of anything. That was, how different was that than being on an ODA?
Culturally, it was more of a melting pot because you had dudes like my roommate when I first got to Baghdad was an E4 11 Bravo that had 1 combat tour under his belt, and concurrently while I'm doing the Blackwater thing, I'm also an E7 on what I would argue is one of the best ODAs in the military, just based off of where guys ended up and whatnot. So there was a lot of. I joked with people that I did my job in Baghdad so I could afford to be on the ODA in the National Guard that I was a part of.
Contracting pays a little bit better.
It does, yeah. I think my rate,
especially
back
then,
was $575 a day.
Yeah, people were making fucking like $150 in 6 months and peacing out.
Yeah, but it became a lifestyle for people.
Oh yeah,
and
because they would stop in Germany on the way back, or fucking UAE or something like Dubai. Yeah, and spend all their money.
Well, and that's if you're like a single dude. But I mean, one thing about contracting, and I try to tell guys when they're getting out of, especially group, if they think they're no contract, I try to shy them away from it because it's not a career move. It's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Contract work is there to fill in for a shortage that whatever agency owns the contract has. It is not a permanent thing. And the second that they've got a budget cut, you're gone. The second that somebody that is a fully badged employee of whatever agency you're part of looks at you the wrong way, you're gone. Like, you are entirely expendable. And there's no SGLI if you die.
Yeah.
You know, how much is that worth to you?
Yeah.
You might get some interesting stories out of it. I know I did, but those days are over. Those days are long gone.
Well, you contracted a bunch.
I did.
And
so Evan and I contracted in Africa with Northrop Grumman before he went and did his agency thing. And before I stopped going to Africa because I got hired by Blackwater. So I was teaching in Africa back like in 04, 05 time frame. But I really wanted to get into Iraq, and the Army wasn't sending me, so I sent myself. And I stayed there for a number of years. So I would say I cut my teeth as an instructor, probably in Africa. Like that's difficult.
who are you training?
UN and AU peacekeepers.
Whereabouts, like Sierra Leone and shit?
No. So we didn't go to the hot spots. We went to the countries
Like Cameroon and shit like that?
volunteered. So I did Botswana. That's where I started. I did like 6 weeks in Botswana. Awesome country.
Yeah, I've heard
Africa.
good things about
That's
Botswana.
the place you
Yeah.
want to go. It's like the Idaho of Africa.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of white supremacists there in Botswana.
Oh, well, I mean, South Africa's right below us.
Yeah,
so,
sure. Yeah.
And there are some South Africans in Botswana also. And then I did like Senegal, like 5 or 6. They just kept sending me to Senegal.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I taught everything from land nav to basic rifle marksmanship but my big thing was med, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they've got sanitation issues over there. So field medicine is a really important thing to
yeah, I
learn.
didn't really do a lot of that because I was very limited on, like, I couldn't expand the POI beyond what the State Department approved.
That's true. There's,
Which,
you know,
so funny thing there, I had to teach a react to near ambush class. And that was something we had to push with the State Department. Like,
return fire, get down, throw grenades, battle drill and alpha, like that whole thing.
Yeah, just
that's
turn
fucking
face the enemy
funny.
and rush them, right?
Yeah.
We just trained everybody on how to react to near ambush. Well, we had paintball guns for a little force on force there. Excuse me, just to add some realism. And we just talked through the whole POI in like 15 seconds, right? The rest was just executing. So I've got this interpreter that's doing.
That's got to be fun, to be honest.
It is. I love it, man.
Just to be able to watch a bunch of knuckleheads trying to do battle drill 4 would be. I would train kids to do that for a while and just watch them do it all day.
Getting them to actually buy into what you're saying and watching them get excited about it is awesome.
Yeah,
it really is. Like when I was in Botswana, I was there for I was teaching like a full week of combat lifesaver to a select group of BDF infantry guys. The hardest part about doing that is convincing them that they're not medics afterwards because they want to stop doing medical shit.
Yeah,
and that happens in the American military as well. They get so wrapped around the medical training that they forget you got to fight first.
Yeah.
But
well, there's I think Battle Drill 4 is probably the one that's the most counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so you're saying I got to shoot back and then find cover.
Right.
And then throw grenades and then do this. It's like that. It seems like people's instinct is just to hit the dirt immediately.
I mean,
which is not the right answer.
When it's actually
same thing with one. I
me,
guess one
that's
out
exactly
was like
what
that
I've
too.
done. I've hit the dirt and I jumped into a ditch,
Yeah.
which is not what you're supposed to do because it
No.
could be mined. And,
Yeah. Luckily, the enemy's not as smart as
not typically.
Yeah.
If you're the enemy, don't listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do
so, so I go through the very quick POI of how to react to near ambush, and my interpreter, Freddie, is translating it in a mixture of French and Wolof, this local tribal language. But he's just going on and on and on. He's getting really passionate about it. And this other guy that I trusted, because he used to work with Third Group, this other interpreter's walking by. He's like, what's up, chef? You know, he's talking to me. I say, hey, what's up, Louis? hey man, what's Freddie saying? He's like, he's saying what you said. I said, Louis.
Yeah. I said 7 words.
Yeah.
He's been
What's
talking
he
for
saying?
half an hour.
He goes, so I need to preface this by saying Senegal is just a little north of where Voodoo was born. So Voodoo was born in Benin, which is, if you look at Africa and you think of like that little crevice there, like the armpit of Africa, literally, that's where Voodoo comes from. And Senegal is West Africa, so it travels a little bit. So Senegal is mostly Islam, but it's Islam mixed with Voodoo.
Oh, that's a great mix.
It's fucking weird.
Jesus Christ.
So they wear these talismans around their stomachs called gris-gris. And the same thing, like in rock climbing, there's that device called a gris-gris. That's where the term comes from.
Okay.
Because rock climbers like to name things weird shit. So it's this little talisman that's been blessed by a local witch doctor. And it's supposed to be a protection talisman. So Louis goes, he's saying that if you are caught in an ambush, do not fear. Turn and face the enemy and fight, and you will not be hit, for you are wearing your gris-gris and you will be protected. I said, oh, well, that's part of what I said.
Yeah.
So I said, I've got this paintball gun. I said, hey, Freddie. He goes, yeah, chef. I said, you got your gris-gris? He goes, oui, chef. I said, show me. He lifts up his shirt, and I just went, whack, 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 whack.
Was it
25, he's like, ah!
Was it a paintball gun or was it sim rounds?
No, it was paintball.
Oh, okay.
Like
sim rounds hurt.
I wouldn't have done that with sim rounds.
Yeah, I got shot in the neck with
that's
one of
me,
those goddamn things.
I shot
one
Evan
time.
right there across the bridge.
Was he not wearing the ski mask or whatever the
No,
fuck?
but it was
those
we're jumping stories, but it was in a abandoned wing of an insane asylum. And
Oh, sweet.
he was passing on some latest and greatest CQB, and we went into this place, and I shot him across this big open entryway through a door crack like that, and it was just completely reactive.
That's pretty impressive, actually, because sim rounds don't exactly travel.
It was a fucking badass shot.
They don't travel very
true.
true over like 20 feet or so. They don't travel very true. So that's a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So I'm shooting up Freddie with paintballs, and I said, why isn't it working? He said, you're not, while I'm peppering him, he's like, you're not my enemy. I said, oh, okay. That's what it is. You're only protected from your enemy.
Yeah, makes sense,
Yeah. So I taught in Africa, and then I decided I wanted to go to Iraq. I went to Iraq with Blackwater, did the conventional side, did the air side, did low vis. Blackwater had me develop basically what's now TCCC, POI. So I taught MSGs, I taught the Air Force Security Forces over there, and that was more of a PR thing because Blackwater, anytime any security company did fucked up anything in Iraq, it was blamed on Blackwater.
Yeah, because there was the only one anybody knew about. I mean, how long did executive outcomes get blamed for shit years after they didn't even exist?
Probably still getting blamed for shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, it was so bad to the point where, like, our low-vis team got shot through the windshield in a level 7, in an up-armored 7 series by Armor Group International, and we got blamed for it.
Who do they think is driving that thing in Baghdad?
The level 7?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Was it a stray shot or were they?
No.
Oh my God, man.
Yeah.
Let me
It was
just
indiscriminate.
Well, it's too late now, but there are no Iraqi militants, insurgents cruising around in a fucking 7 series armored. Sorry, bud.
There might be now.
Yeah, maybe now, but definitely not in 2004 or whatever the fuck that was.
No.
God
No,
damn
that
it.
was 07.
07.
That was the summer of love. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually the Gold Mosque blew up and nationwide curfew, all that shit.
Yeah.
What a shit show.
Yeah. So we had counterfeit plates from the agency, and funny story. We had one guy on our team, on our low-vis team, that he was a former linguist for the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. So he spoke Arabic, but he was on leave, and nobody else even knew how to read numbers. And the reason we had to switch out these plates, but there was also because there was a fuel shortage, ironically, in Iraq. You could only there was days for odd day number plates, and there was days that you could drive with even number plates. There's restrictions on civilians driving. So we were pretty ignorant to that, and then we were driving down through we called the Dick, the little peninsula there that runs through the Karate district.
Yeah.
And all the security in the Karate district, because there were so many government buildings there, was run by the Peshmerga. And those are the only guys that we trusted.
Yeah, certainly.
Because the cops were dirty.
Oh, yeah.
Like, footnote, I was stuck in traffic one day in a low-vis movement, and the reason we were in a traffic jam is because Iraqi police were robbing a bank up ahead of us. And they came out with their American-supplied Glocks shooting in the air.
Yeah.
It was like a 1920s Keystone Cop movie.
Yeah,
They came out, they were wearing their uniforms and holding bags of money, shooting the Glocks in the air.
Fucking Christ. That's not surprising. We got into a couple of dust-ups with the Iraqi police.
Yeah, IPs were dirty, man. That's part of why the ICTF was created.
Yeah.
But that's down the road.
Yeah.
So we're in Karada, and we're a 3-car motorcade, and there's no traffic, which is eerie as fuck. Because the strength of...
That means there's a fucking bomb on that road somewhere.
The strength of our TTPs is being able to blend into traffic.
Yeah.
Even if it only fools people for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
Well, I mean, most of those are command detonated if it's on a busy highway. So all you got to do is beat one guy, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you find them.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just beat the device is what I'm saying.
I got
Because
you.
usually they would find a light pole in the middle of the median or something like that, or a dead horse on the side of the road.
Exactly.
But it was pretty obvious where they were going to be.
Right. So they would have to know it was us. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not going to know that until after we drive through.
Yeah.
So it's eerie as fuck. We're alone on this street, and this Peshmerga guard steps out in front of the lead vehicle, and we're dispersed. We're not all nut to butt. We're dispersed pretty good over about, I don't know, 100, 150 meters. And Jeff, he's his former SEAL. He's the TC up front. DSS tactics are different. You've got your second command in the lead vehicle, and your shift leader, your guy in command in the last vehicle. So you can kind of control where everybody's going instead. You're leading from the rear.
Yeah.
So TC gets out. He's talking through the Pesh guy is going like this with his hands. He's like, and Jeff is an angry dude in general, and he's like, "What? What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?" And Mojo, my shift leader, I'm sitting behind him in the right rear of this Beamer, and he goes, "Shark, what's he doing?" Shark was his call sign. "Shark, what's he doing?" He's like, "I don't know. He's fucking waving his hands around. I don't know what the fuck he's doing." He's like, "All right, well, let me know. Do we need to pop? I mean, do we need to break the seal?" And which would have been my cue to get out and use the armored door for cover and put my M4 over the door. He's like, "No, hang on just a second." So I can hear him through the radio going, "What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?" And Jeff goes, "Fuck it, I'm popping." And Mojo's like, "Wait!" And before he could do it, like, we see Jeff get out, and he's like throwing his hands up in the air, like just all this pantomime.
God damn it!
And the Pesh dude is not. Thank God the Pesh dude wasn't getting amped up, and like the other guards there weren't getting amped up. The Pesh dude is just like. So like, "What the fuck is this? I don't know what you're looking at. What's a flip-flop?" So he walks around, and I don't know if it was through a combination of body language or maybe just like some broken English, but Jeff gets back in and gets on the radio and he goes, "Hey, yeah, so everything's fine. Our license plate's on upside down because nobody could read Arabic numerals." So that was the whole thing. So after that, we all learned Arabic numerals, so we could at least figure out if it was a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, that's good. So you don't get shot by your own people, especially, or pulled over by the Iraqi police and get into a gunfight with them.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how many times we ran into those especially the ones in the trucks. They always had a dead body in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Are you recovering this, or did you guys kill this dude?
This,
like, what the fuck, man?"
Is this just SOP?
You did some other stuff for a while. How was that? You worked with Evan for a bit.
I did. Yeah, he got me into all that. So I came home from contracting, and I'd done some more stuff other than whips. Like I'd gone back to Afghanistan again on a civilian ODA, on a program that was actually set up by General Sellers when he was Major Sellers. But that was with the artist formerly known as Blackwater, working with the Afghan border police. And it was actually your boys, The 82nd owned the battle space that I was in, RC East, and they heard the word Blackwater, and we just got shut down. So
yeah, to be honest, our high level command is not very good. It never has been.
Yeah. So you want to talk about fraud, waste, and abuse? I got to watch the entire series of How I Met Your Mother and Rescue Me on Haji Vision. So got really good at that.
Was it actual TV or was it like?
No. The burned
disc
CDs,
with like it looked like they had printed the label somewhere.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Customs tried to shake us down in 2008 on the way back.
For those?
Like, you can only have one copy of each one. It was like, do you really think, like, I know how to burn CDs, you stupid fuck. I'm not going to bring 600 burned CDs of the same thing. I'll just burn another copy when I get home. Nobody was doing that.
The best Haji Vision, which is probably very un-PC now to say. But
fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah. The best Haji Vision movie I ever saw was Kill Bill. And I think I saw it like 2 days after it came out.
Was it was it a real rip or was it one that was filmed inside the theater?
Filmed inside. And that's what made it so good. Is because it opens up. He didn't edit out.
It's just like some dude's
setting
head.
up a tripod in the theater. And you can hear like Charlie Brown's teacher just talking to him like, and you hear this guy in a very like New York, New Jersey accent say, "Mind your fucking business."
That's funny.
That
usually it's from China.
I was on
those rips.
The Afghan. We were the northernmost fire base on the Pakistan border when that came out, and we had it at the little local shack 2 days after the movie was released. That's
crazy.
That's pretty logistically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to do something.
Yeah.
A lot of sitting around.
A lot of sitting around. So I did a lot of sitting around. I did some training out there too. Just offering up the skills, making friends. And then I left that. Went home, did some Army schools, did a couple JSETs. And then I was working with the Indian SAS on a training mission and got hired by the National Guard to be a ROTC instructor at the University of Washington.
That's cool.
And that was, I remember telling Evan that, and I had a little bit of a womanizing problem back in the day. And he's like, "Man, that's great. That's really going to be good for you. You deserve a break." And there's this like pregnant pause, and he goes, "Hey man, do you think that's the right job for you?" But I was good. It was definitely an adjustment period for me that first year. So up to that point, that's 2010, the fall of 2010. And up to that point, I hadn't been home longer than 4 months consecutive since graduating the Q course. And I would get the itch, and I was constantly angry, I felt like all the people around me had no idea how good they had it, and they didn't earn what they had. I was just constantly pissed off, and some of that made for a good instructional environment for brand new cadets, some of whom I'm still friends with to this day, and they're captain promotables and majors. But it came to the end of that year, and I realized that it was their world, and I had to adapt to their world instead of the other way around. And
but that's always the case, right? You always want to take all your strengths and experience and adapt it to what's coming next. That's kind of the job of a special forces operator, actually.
But when you've been like just in a combat environment and not necessarily a singleton, a little bit at a time I was a singleton.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should probably do something about that, to be honest.
I do too.
Break up the career path a little bit and not let some dude go on 14 straight team deployments. You know what I mean? Even if you just put somebody on a protection detail where it's a smaller team or something like that would probably be beneficial.
There's such a career track because when you look at the number of soldiers in the Special Forces Regiment, it is actually the largest division in the Army. Which is weird when you're talking about the base, the foundation of the Special Forces Regiment is a 12-man ODA. And definitely not all those are 12-man ODAs. Like we do have a shortage of Green Berets.
Yeah,
but it's a 3-to-1 ratio of support to operator.
How many?
3-to-1.
3-to-1.
Not necessarily in the regiment, but just like
I mean,
that's the way it is in infantry as well.
Yeah. I think it's more in the infantry, actually. Probably. I guess it depends on who you consider support. I think it might be over 10 for every infantry guy, but there's not that. Even in a battalion has 600-ish people in the infantry and only about 350 shooters, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's just at our battalion. That's not including our S&T support, fucking brigade support, and all that bullshit.
Right.
So I don't actually know what the ratio is, but 3 to 1 is about what it should be, probably, right?
Yeah.
3 or 4, probably.
Yeah. Guys I've got this from dudes that are like, I had a lunch with some Green Berets last week. Some that I was a sergeant major of, some that were just first group dudes that were tagging along, and the health of the regiment right now is not great.
Yeah, I'm not going to call anybody out specifically, but a couple of the groups, one that's in the Pacific Northwest and one that's in the Southeast, are not doing terribly good morale-wise right now, and the commands are fucking with dudes that are trying to do their. Like, if you haven't been in the military for a while now, if you're retiring, you could do a 6-month internship. There's all kinds of new opportunities now, and some friends of ours have actually been blocked, at least temporarily, from doing some of that stuff, and it's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. To be honest, that's not how you manage a shortage. Right. That's not how you do it. Right. Because they tried that during the surge stuff with the stop loss stuff, and it did not help us in any way. Yeah. It didn't help. It didn't help unit morale. For my buddy who was supposed to have been out 6 months by then to lose an eye. Right. That fucking pissed everybody off. Right? Yeah. Like that you can't allow that shit to happen.
So it's just overworking. I mean, I get it. You go through selection to be part of the regiment and do what the regiment does. I get that. And there's nobody that dons a Green Beret that does not love being a Green Beret. But the burnout rate, we got to do something about the burnout rate. You know, when you just despite being the largest division in the Army, there is more work than there are guys to do it. Right. And so either something needs to change with foreign policy, or something needs to change in how we conduct foreign policy. That's kind of what it comes down to, because not every mission is going to a combat zone. The bulk of SF work is going to another country and working with a partner force, and being essentially the action arm of diplomacy. Like I mean, Maldives, Nepal, South Korea, Thailand, Philippines, India. I'm missing some in there. I know I am, but I've done training missions in all these countries. Malaysia, you know, and I'm working with other SOF units or other infantry units, and that's the bread and butter of our work. Is we're supposed to be able to do unconventional warfare better than anybody else. But the foundation to get good at unconventional warfare is being able to do foreign internal defense, because there's only so many ODAs that can be dropped in to do a true UW mission, and that takes a pretty spectacular set of circumstances in geopolitics to have a UW mission, and it takes a really non-risk adverse command environment. Which
I mean, it's been going on in the Philippines for a while, right?
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, not after that bullshit. Yeah. What was that, 2019?
I think so. Yeah. No, it was before that, because I was in Korea in 2018, and that's when the big investigation was going on. So I think it was 17.
Yeah, maybe it was 17. But there have been SIF teams down in fucking Southern Philippines fucking shit up for a good 15 years now. You don't hear much about that stuff.
No, but even with that, there's so much ROE restriction on where they can be. Like
now especially, yeah. It's like they back in the mid, like when Bert Kuntz and people like that we know were over there in the middle 2000s, they were just cruising around with soft armor Humvees, just fucking getting in gunfights all the time and shit.
I was driving around Mindanao in 2006 in a soft-skin NTV. You know?
Fuck that.
Yeah.
I would rather walk than drive around in a soft-skin vehicle. That's what I'm saying. I'm an infantry guy. These are my my Cadillacs right here. I'll walk 30 miles. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and environments like that, I mean, like I can blend in Afghanistan to a point because I can grunt hard and grow a beard. I'm never going to be a little brown guy.
No, that's just not going to work. They don't have a pill for that just yet. We'll see. So you get around pretty well, and then
so I taught RCC for a couple years.
Yeah. Go to J3.
Sequestration happened.
Yeah.
So let me hop on this soapbox real quick. If I could change one thing in Congress today, I would say anytime there's a government shutdown, Congress doesn't get paid. Because everybody out there that is receiving any kind of federal paycheck receives the ass end of that. Like that, and it is stressful not knowing if you're going to get paid or not.
Mm-hmm.
But Congress still gets paid when there's a government shutdown.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to sign up for Obamacare either.
No, they've got free health care. They should
and they can insider
be
trade with
subject
impunity.
to every law that they make,
Yeah.
and instead of being an exception to the rule.
I also think that if there's got to be some kind of change in the way we declare wars.
Yeah.
And
what is actually a war?
Yeah, what constitutes a war? Because this word conflict doesn't mean shit to me.
Right.
Like if I'm standing out on a street corner and some dude starts shooting, like, oh, this is just a conflict. Don't worry, guys.
Right.
Everything's fine. It's like, no, it's still a gunfight. And I think there should be some requirement, some percentage of Congress should have to deploy, in the event that they declare a war.
It's like just forward deployed legislative branch.
Yep.
That would be interesting.
Yep.
That would be good for guys like us that have protection detail experience.
Yep.
Just walking around doing codels all the time.
Yeah, why not? I mean, look, the the AMBOs do it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And that's an appointed position and not an elected one.
Right.
It's like I'll say this. There's look, AMBO to AMBO, there's quite a divide, right?
Yeah.
But people like Chris, there's some of these dudes got big ass balls, man. You know what I mean? Like going into a country to be a diplomat that's not a real country and everybody's killing each other all the time.
Are you talking about Benghazi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be a fucking wild asshole to do some shit like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I say wild asshole, I mean that with the most amount of respect you can say those words with.
I've had 3 different debriefs from that, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, none of them are good. So then you go to USASOC J3. Right?
Yeah, so I was in a USASOC staff unit. It was still National Guard.
Is that are you sliced to USASOC at that time, or are you representing 19th?
It's actually a theater command. So
you're sliced. You're not representing 19th Group. You're there for USASOC.
USASOC,
okay.
Yeah. And back then it was actually SOCOM.
Mm-hmm.
Those units have been since moved over under USASOC for better or worse. But it was
everything moved over there.
Yeah,
Shit.
it was meant to augment SOCOM specifically. But spent some time out at Camp Smith and doing theater level exercises and whatnot, and it wasn't anything super cool, but it was cool to be able to zoom out and see that it wasn't group that was fucking us.
Yeah,
it was bigger than that. Because prior to that, I'm in charge of 12 dudes. Max, I was in charge of 15 with enablers and a couple strap hangers, and so I'm more like a highly capable, platoon sergeant on steroids rather than a true EA. But going up to that operational and strategic level, I was like, it was a big eye opener on how the sausage is actually made. So not a lot happened there because I was one of a few NCOs in a unit full of officers that were hanging out waiting to get a battalion command somewhere.
At least you were in theater and not in garrison, because that job in garrison, just having to walk around saluting people all day, there's no way I wouldn't survive one day in that environment.
I was kind of both. So rather than it's difficult to be an operations sergeant major in a unit that doesn't actually have any current operations.
Yeah, what do you do all day?
I made myself a singleton. So I went out and I supported Jade Helm, which is when I decided I didn't like Alex Jones a whole lot. Because I wasn't rounding people up and putting people in FEMA camps.
Yeah, what was the other one? The urban something that happened in Oakland every year. Do you remember that one?
No.
I attended it a couple of times. It was just like it was HRT and a bunch of SWAT teams around the country that were just doing training.
Oh.
And then it was like, oh, they're fucking ending the world. I'm like, all right, some of the stuff you say is really good, dude, but this is retarded.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying is demonstrably untrue.
Yeah. Yeah. It just, I took personal offense to that because being an SF guy, I knew that anytime somebody starts saying they, it automatically disqualifies.
Yeah.
Or down.
In person, I call it. Well, it's not. I call it. It is
depersonification.
But it's called an impersonal pronoun, which is a pronoun that applies to no one in particular. I don't accept that. Anytime one of my soldiers came to me, I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
Because they told me to fucking do. I'm like, "Who the fuck is they?"
Yeah. Who is they?
You tell me who
Give me
they
a
is
name.
right now, or you're gonna do push-ups until you die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I hate that. That's my pet peeve. As a sergeant, that was my pet peeve.
Yeah. Same.
Do not fucking say they to me ever.
Same. They said
Now
no.
it's they them.
Yeah.
So.
Who is they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I did a few exercises, and it was kind of a finishing school, I would say. And then I went back to. I was teaching tactics, combatives, tradecraft, etc. for the government, and I got made company sergeant major of my own unit. And that was.
They didn't try to force you into big army to do some sergeant major time, because that happens to a lot of guys.
That's the beauty of the Guard.
Yeah, I guess it's true.
They don't really have. There's askers for that. Like that. Sometimes they'll ask the Guard for a certain.
But you have to agree to be activated too.
Right. Yeah. So
if you're on an NG contract, you have to agree to be activated.
Exactly.
Active duty, so you can shut that down.
Yeah, and that's really that's the biggest strength of doing things through the Guard is it's really a choose your own adventure. The downside is you don't have a safety net. If the funding goes away or the orders go away, you better have something to fall back on.
Or if they move their battalion somewhere the fuck else.
Right.
Like which happened, in 2004 or 5? When did they realign all those? Or was it later?
Like you talking about like when they
19th added some places and then they moved some places as well. Sometime, I think.
Added Texas.
Yeah, when was that?
I want to say that was 06, but I don't really know.
Oh, that makes sense because that's when the brigade combat team bullshit happened too.
Right.
It was early 06.
Yeah.
They sent us like a whole battalion of Cav guys. We're like, we're good, dude. We don't need this. What the fuck are we gonna do with Cav?
You know, the funny thing about that whole alignment is that infantry is obviously a feeder for special forces. Utah, which has a battalion and a company and group headquarters, an entire group headquarters of special forces, does not have an infantry unit.
Yeah, it's weird how the National Guard spread out. Like I think Missouri has 11 Charlies, but they don't have Bravos or something like that. Like what are you going to do with mortarmen and no infantry?
Right. And how do you integrate that? Like, how do you
no
integrate your
idea.
fires? Like
I don't understand that. I mean, that part didn't make any sense to me, but I guess I'm sure there's a reason for it, or there was probably at some point.
And I'm sure it's based on money more than anything.
Probably,
else.
yeah.
And I got to tell you this, man, just because it's such a good segue. So, a couple months ago, I was approached about being a presidential appointee if Trump won, and so the transition team has my resume, but I was so caught off guard by even being asked that I was like, okay. So I had my resume professionally rebuilt so it didn't look like I was applying to be a contractor somewhere. Yeah. And gave it to the transition team. But the next question was, great, what do you want to do? And that was one of the things right there was I would love to be able to work with low density units in the National Guard Bureau to make sure that they are not underfunded and to make sure they're actually properly aligned. So there was a couple other things I put on there too, because, you want your top 3 jobs on there, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. That'd be really cool. I don't even know what that job would be called. Special liaison to low intensity.
Probably special assistant to something. Yeah. I would imagine. Yeah. Something. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to the DOD. People that have never won a fucking war have been in charge of things for far too long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't rest on your fucking creds when you haven't succeeded. Sorry, bud.
The more I learn about how Eastern Bloc things were run, the more I look at our own system and go,
yeah, we fucked up.
How is this different?
That's the thing. When we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, we didn't have any field grade officers with any real combat experience. They were all just like, they were Cold War veterans.
Yeah.
Right? That shit doesn't apply to the desert, bud.
Yeah.
Like, they don't give a fuck. They care. Like, you can get away with a lot of stuff Eastern Bloc style fighting. In the Middle East, and this is something that's a hard sell to people, especially non-military people, sometimes you got to slap somebody right in their face. Like, literally, you have to slap this man right in his face in front of a bunch of people to show that you're the dominant one.
Yeah.
It's old school caveman shit that doesn't apply to modern culture anymore, but that is not a modern culture.
It applies to their culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I... Now I've got to fill out a fucking 15-6 over this shit?
Right.
No, this is how it's done here. We were lucky. Our TRT... or THT rather, which is tactical human, right? So he was our interrogator basically. Would all the tricks, standing close, putting his fucking knee between their legs, like slapping him in the face if he needed to, the best I've ever seen at that job, right? But if anybody had ever found out what he was doing, he would have gotten fired and probably fucking, I don't know, he'd probably be in Leavenworth by now, right? It's like, no, that's just how it's done there.
Yeah.
So why are we acting like we're still fighting white Europeans? I don't understand. Like, look, war is the last resort. But like Mr. Miyagi said, don't fight, but if do fight, win. Like, the point of war is to fucking win the war, man.
Yeah. I told somebody back during the surge, because I was protecting people that were trying to develop infrastructure in the middle of
they were standing up the court then.
conflict.
ICCC was kind of standing up then.
Yeah. I was telling this this Air Force captain, I said, we are trying to build a country that we haven't finished destroying yet.
Because by then, by 7, I don't know about 6, but by 7, those CA teams were all over the place building fucking energy grids and all kinds of shit.
Bro, the PRT money.
So much money.
Yeah. So here's another problem. If we're talking about the Iraq shit, I remember this conversation too. So there was something we didn't talk about is I was a military analyst when I left Blackwater. I left Blackwater because I was tired of getting shot at and running away. You know, for all the rep they have of being cowboys and whatnot, our job was not to stay engaged protracted firefights.
Yeah.
And I could see, like I drove through the Nusura Square ambush 5 minutes before it happened. We reported unusual activity there. I was a federal witness that never got called for that because the defense thought they had it in the bag. I just had this feeling that the State Department was going to throw us under the bus, and they did.
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah.
They always do.
Yeah, so I left and went to a couple schools, and I came back, but I came back as a atmospherics collector. You had to have this basic human school that some special forces guys go through. And the particular office that I was in, you also had to be an 18 Delta. So they were very clear to say you're not with the S2 and you're not running sources and you're not doing this, blah, blah, blah. But that's exactly what we were doing. And we were collecting everything. But the biggest headache I had in that job was getting permission to do my job, especially with Obama won the election and no battle space owners wanted to approve anything until they figured out what he wanted out of Iraq.
Sure.
And it was so frustrating. We're like, yeah, but meanwhile, I'm here. And I still need to do this job. I'm not going out and shooting people in the face. I'm collecting and analyzing information and producing reports.
Yeah, there's no ROE on that.
Yeah.
The fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, just let me go do my job.
No.
Yeah. I forgot how I got kicked off on that, but it was Iraq frustration.
It's just typical bullshit. Well, I mean, you're still in now, but at some point you started doing charity work with Black Rifle. I think you helped stand up the BRCC Fund.
I did
right?
stand up the BRCC Fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Evan's direction. I stood up this in-house nonprofit, and
because really before then we had just been collecting money from like 2017 to 2018. We had done some fundraisers, some charitable stuff, boot campaign, blah blah blah. Tom Spooner's place,
right?
Bunch of different stuff, but it was all one-off, and it was becoming harder and harder.
Pretty
to
random,
manage.
yeah. So I was the first charitable giving manager at Black Rifle.
That was right after I left, actually.
Yeah. So I had just come off a deployment. Back-to-back deployments. I did one with JSOC in Afghanistan in 2017. I had to refrad from Afghanistan to go to Korea because we were going to go to war with North Korea. So I was the spearhead for that. And then came back from that, and I didn't have my government job anymore because they had cut my position since I was deployed. Nobody can...
That Soldier Sailor Relief Act doesn't apply to the government.
No,
People don't know that. Doesn't apply to the government.
To the federal government. They got around that real quick. So I got hired to be a cop for Homeland Security at a job fair at JBLM.
Like a fucking uniform officer for DHS?
Yeah.
Oof, fuck that, dude.
But it was a GS-12 job.
That's true,
like,
the pay's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's just under a fucking section chief.
It also wasn't the first time they'd hired me. Like when I went to teach for state at an annex in West Virginia, when I was actually teaching agents, I was in the hiring process to do that. But it was the same position, GS-12. But when they finally offered me the position 6 months later, they offered me GS-5 Step 1. And I'm in the middle of like
Step 1 at GS-5?
Like $14 an hour, yeah. And it was so low. It was funny. I'm talking to this HR lady in D.C. who's just over the mountains from where I'm at. But I'm in like a fake firefight in an embassy takeover at the time. And I'm overseeing this mass cal exercise. And you can hear like machine gun simulators and all these explosions going off in the background. She seems completely nonplussed by it. But I'm looking at special agents, like doing this. I'm like, oh, no, don't do that. And she's telling me that I'm worth $14 an hour. And I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. Because another place I had worked, when those guys came in as federal employees, I knew they weren't GS-12s or 10s or anything else. But I also knew that once they graduated their training, that they got bumped up to whatever pay grade they were supposed to be. So I figured, surely this GS-5 is probationary. Like, as soon as I finish FLETC, I'll get bumped up to 12. So I accepted it, and then I found out that no, it is accelerated, but it was going to go 5 to 7 to 9 to 11 to 12. So I did a year of intern work at USCIS, and I was a 9 as an intern. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Right.
And we were just doing intel for immigration, right? So we would build cases and give them to ICE.
Yeah.
That's all we did. Like the only real requirement was a college degree, and that's the requirement for any of those.
That's
back
the problem.
then, that was the
I still don't have
requirement.
my degree. I'm a 5th year senior right now.
Well, dragging it out,
Yeah. Well, some of that's Guard problems too. When your administration spends the entire National Guard budget on bringing people out for the inauguration.
So how are they starting? I don't understand this.
Which happened.
You're an E8?
9.
Then.
What year are we talking about?
I don't remember. Whenever you went to
I made 9 in 2014.
Okay, so you're an E9.
Yeah.
And you're going to FPS and they offer you GS-5-1.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Just based off experience, that doesn't make any sense.
Correct. Yeah.
Did you have post B and all that shit?
No.
Because you don't have to. If you go to FLETC, you don't have to do any other bullshit.
No, I didn't have anything real that transferred over.
God, that's retarded.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
I think Biden actually signed an EO to stop that, didn't he? The blanket requirement to have a degree to get the job. I don't
know, because the only thing that stopped me from being a DS agent, because I was highly recruited for that as well, was college degree.
Yeah, the state they don't fuck around with that.
Don't.
You can't get a job as a janitor state.
Which is funny because I'm a high threat instructor for a diplomatic security service with combat experience with the diplomatic security
qualified
service.
To instruct them, but not to be one. That doesn't make any sense in any world.
Yeah, and I remember this one agent saying, "Hey, I'm going over to the hiring board. I'll be there for a couple of years. You need to put your packet in." And I said, "Yeah, I don't have a degree." He's like, "Go buy one."
Yeah.
What
go
he
to
said
Tahiti Tech or some bullshit.
Buy a degree.
Yeah.
He said, "Doesn't matter what it is. It just needs to be a degree."
Yeah.
Yeah. There's we're doing the Trump weave here, but the requirement. I remember taking a full load of classes on a tour in Afghanistan, and this 05 told me, "Hey, whatever you need to do for proctoring, I'm here for it." He said, "I have no doubt at this point you are smarter than anybody else you're going to school with and more experienced." He said, "A college degree is just proof that you could suffer through it."
Yeah. But you went to selection in the Q course.
Right. So. Well, there's one thing I would do Like, there's no reason that somebody that is an E8 in Special Forces should not have a degree in low-intensity conflict or special operations. Or
I mean, you can transfer a bunch of the credits. I think I only did 5 years. I was an E5.
Yeah.
And I transferred like 45 credits.
Yeah, I've got a shit ton of ACE credits, but I've also got a shit ton that are sitting in a garbage bin down at the bottom that didn't transfer to an actual degree plan.
Yeah.
Like, I've got...
Well, that's a problem with universities as well. The fact that somewhere between 45 and 65% of your credit hours, depending on what you're going for, are electives. Like, what the fuck is the point of that? That's just you bilking me out of money.
Exactly.
That's the cable company 1980s model.
Yeah. So
here's the Trinity Broadcast Network. Like, I'm all set on that.
Why there's Campbell University, Fayetteville State? Hell, they can partner with Duke or UNC or NC State. It's right there.
I mean, there's not one military outpost in this country that's not next to a university. It's just they're built that way.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the way it is.
They could go through Central Texas College. Who cares?
Anywhere.
Who cares? As long as it's an accredited institution.
Yeah, and the college is going to be perfectly happy to take more money.
Yeah.
To be clear.
And have the prestige of having the only degree plan for Green Berets.
Yeah.
I mean, why is that not a thing? The Air Force has Air Force University.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is such a... I hate this. This is part of the caste system in the military. If you're an officer and you choose to stay in, your master's degree is guaranteed.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because it's part of your career track. You're going to go off to Command Staff General College.
Yeah. If you stay in past major, really, or if you stay in as a major, if you get out, if you stay in after your captain time, then you have a master's.
You're getting your master's, yeah.
Unless you're a retard, you fail. But
and the Army already paid for your degree to get your bachelor's.
Yeah. And you by that time in your enlistment, you wouldn't have completely. Well, I guess probably by the time you made it to War College, you probably would have done your service time, because captain, even the auto captain, is at fucking 42 months or something like that. So you're almost 4 years in right there. And that's only in certain MOSs. If you go through the normal process, you're captain up until, or you make captain at 3.
I think it's 3
to 5 years, somewhere in that range, depending on the MOS. By the time you're a major, you've already paid back your debt.
Yeah. So you've got a 6-year commitment.
Yeah, you're a blank slate at that point. You're just getting a free master's degree.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you don't get shit if you're enlisted.
Yeah, no matter how many schools you go to.
Yeah.
Especially it's one thing in line units, but in special operations, I mean, you're in a fucking school every year. More than one sometimes, very, very frequently. Especially once they started making your guys' schools mobile and stuff, and for some reason, I think it actually happened at the same time, because air assault schools started traveling around and doing air assault schools everywhere as well. But all your sniper schools started moving around, like a lot of your schools.
So every group has their own sniper school.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, think about when your stocks are. You're out at night a lot.
Yeah.
And that's like a 6-week course again.
Yeah.
Now, it takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
If you're not downrange somewhere, you're training. Mm-hmm. So the only time you're really getting a chance to do that college time is when you're actually doing your PME. Just SOFC is long as shit. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what they're getting for college out of that. You got MLC to make E8 now. And all of these require extensive academic work and writing APA format papers. Mm. So you can't say they're not meeting some academic requirement that's required for a degree. It's well beyond that.
Yeah.
Well beyond that.
So what are you doing now?
I'm doing some PI work on the side. I'm still with Black Rifle, but I'm in marketing strategy.
Content or what?
No, not doing
strategy
any content.
Side.
Yeah. Marty came back from Task and Purpose, and I work for Marty. It's a lot of social media strategy type things. Yeah. And I started a marketing consultancy specializing in charitable giving.
Okay.
Because I've seen how marketing companies, even at Black Rifle, really jack it up.
The charitable stuff, yeah. Well, people, I mean, it's like a completely different world. You know? And
there's different rules around it.
Yeah. What you can say and what you can't.
What you can say, what you can't do, and then like how you can actually fundraise. Like at the state level, some things are considered gambling.
Yeah. Well, you can't. You got to say you can't use the word contest or raffle.
Right.
There's like a list of words you're not allowed to use, but you can do the exact same thing and call it something else, and it's all fine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the biggest shortfall with that is companies do not know, even when they want to do something good, they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
They don't know who to give to.
Yeah.
Case in point, we had a marketing director who we were going to do a buy a bag, give a bag.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to raise money. And she wanted to know who we wanted to select to be the recipient of. And this is when I was the charitable giving manager. But she just arbitrarily, out of name recognition, decided that we were going to give that money to the American Red Cross.
That's not a military organization.
It's not a military. It's a good organization, but they don't need our money. And this was this was years ago, long before Black Rifle was public. So my annual giving budget was $400,000, all in, with in-kind donations and cash. That's nothing, right? I mean, if you're a mom and pop organization, it's huge. But if you're on the verge of going public, it's
Yeah.
So, so giving $50K to the American Red Cross is nothing to the American Red Cross, and that's
Sure.
part of. It's not that it wasn't going to be effective. It's just that if you got a limited budget and you're trying to give to somebody, you need to get some ROI off that.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get any ROI from giving to a company where they barely hear that you made the donation.
Especially if you're trying to grow the program.
Yeah.
And show the board of that company that it's useful, right? I mean, that's a big step.
The irony of that donation is the week that it was decided we were going to cut this check to the American Red Cross, they sent Black Rifle a cease and desist over the coffee saves bag. Same
Sweet.
week.
Yeah. By the way, that symbol predates Red Cross by about 200 years.
Yeah.
So go fuck yourself.
They've got a whole legal department. I found out that's all they do is send out cease and desist.
It's them in
Red
Patagonia
Cross.
that sues everybody.
Yeah, right.
Like if you're running a company, do you really have time to reach out and like Patagonia sues people over parody stuff all the time?
Yeah.
Which you will never win that.
Yeah.
They just want to keep people tied up in court so they'll stop.
A lot of it's a scare tactic.
Yeah,
fuck
you.
I found that out earlier this year. I had to send somebody a cease and desist over some social media nonsense.
Yeah, it happens.
And I knew going in from my lawyer that we weren't actually going to go to court. That was just to give that person a heads up, like, hey, you're on the radar. Knock it off.
Knock it off. And you're doing a thing tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to it. It's for Real Warriors.
Real
right?
Warriors,
Like
yeah.
the fishing.
So it was a nonprofit called Real Warriors. They started in California with a former Marine Corps air crewman who lost some guys, and they just wanted to get out of cell phone range, do some offshore fishing, but that shit's expensive. It's like $20K to charter a boat.
Yeah.
That's how it started, and it's turned into not just let's give guys an opportunity to get out of cell phone range, but it's actually turned into a gateway to mental health, because they're sponsoring a smaller nonprofit called the Illinoides Project, which is brand new, but it's for intelligence community contractors.
Cool.
Because there is nobody that takes care of them, and they've got a very high suicide rate. So yeah, you've got this what looks like on the surface this fishing nonprofit and hunting nonprofit, just getting guys off the couch, get them to do some camaraderie, get them talking with each other, which has in itself been highly effective. One of the dudes that was a DDM for state that I was in Baghdad with, he came on one of the fishing trips with me, and now he's active in the organization, and he said it was exactly what he needed. He just needed to feel some kind of purpose again, because after leaving Baghdad, he was just trying to integrate back into like construction.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working for him.
Well, it's a good organization.
Yeah.
We've they've been around for some time now too.
Yeah. That's so a guy that I worked with in the intelligence community was on their board, and that's how I got hooked up with it. And as a charitable giving manager for Black Rifle, I was able to cut them some checks at some pretty important times. And now they're big enough that they don't really need Black Rifle, but they still need donations.
Sure.
And since they've moved to Texas, there's a much more receptive community. Even though the offshore fishing thing is, I mean, we're in San Antonio. It's not like an ocean right here like it was in San Diego.
Yeah. I mean, there is the Gulf, but it's hours away.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And what else? What else you got coming up?
On Thursday, I'm out at the Staccato Ranch doing the Special Forces Charitable Trust shoot. With
Are they done building up there yet, or is it still building? Because they're building like a massive facility up there right now.
It's built.
Oh, it's done. That's fucking dope.
Yeah, it's been built for a minute. Really cool facility. But I'm going up to say hi to the new director of national intelligence.
Yeah, her sister lives up there somewhere, so she's
does
up
she?
there. She's up there a lot. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
Cool.
know that. Yeah, so say hi to Tulsi, and then stick around a couple more days, and I'm going to go up to hang out with another nonprofit called Camp Vertex up outside Dallas, and I'm going to do some pistol and shotgun work with Terry Hewen,
Oh, sweet.
former SEAL Team 6 guy.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, he's a great dude, and brought my bow along because I need to kill something, man.
You brought your bow. Well, so you're in Texas. Axis is available year round here.
Yeah.
But you don't want to shoot one around here. You're going to go to West Texas because they're big as fuck out there.
Have you shot an Axis?
Oh, yeah. I shot a 280 pounder last year on my buddy's lease. And he was like, yeah, that's a pretty good mid-size one. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So that's actually the last thing I shot was an Axis.
I love that. I shoot. That's the only thing I really hunt because they taste so good.
It's great meat.
Yeah.
They consider it an invasive species. You don't need.
You can walk into your backyard and stab one in the face, man. You don't need anything.
Yeah, if you can catch it. The thing about Axis, man, is
They're
whitetail bound.
Yeah.
Axis run flat and run fast.
Yeah,
and
they're fast as shit.
They're hard to track.
Yeah.
Like
Whitetail are the dumbest animals I've ever seen.
Yeah,
so
but they're super skittish.
There's some coyotes somewhere in my backyard somewhere
Yeah.
or off the property somewhere. I hear them howling and stuff. And I saw one 2 or 3 nights ago, 4 nights ago. I was out walking my dogs at night, and anytime I walk my dogs at night, I'm out there with night vision on. I don't know why I do it. I've been doing it for years. But I'm walking around with night vision, and I have two little. I have a medium-sized dog too, but I've got 2 little Boston Terriers.
I got to interrupt real quick. As soon as you said that, the first thing I pictured was that scene out of Three Kings back in the day with Jamie Kennedy, where he's walking around with the knives. George Clooney's like, take those off. They don't work during the day. He goes, they kind of work.
Idiot. I do have white phosphor nods though, so they do kind of
nice.
work during the daytime. But I'm looking for one of my dogs, and they're chasing deer around. There's whitetail all over the place, so they're just chasing deer around. That's what they always do. But I see what looks like a big dog. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I flip my nods down, and I look at him like, oh shit, that's a coyote. It's a big one. So I didn't know where my dogs were at the time, and I didn't have my rifle on. I just had my pistol on me, so I just ran towards it. You know what I mean? Just scared off.
Yeah.
But I've been back there hunting that motherfucker every night now. I'm looking for. I'm going to shoot. I told my neighbors, I'm like, hey, if you hear pops at night, that's just me killing coyotes because they all have dogs. One of my neighbors has 2 little dogs. The other one has 3 big ones. But I was like, I'm going to kill this thing. They're like, yeah, it's fine. They don't care. They're all retired Republicans. But there's a very large group, probably, I don't know how many because they're never all in the same spot, but probably 30 whitetail that cruise around my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And this is how stupid they are. I'm out looking for. I'm just kind of posted up and next to a tree in my yard, just looking around, and I see a couple of them fucking with the trees that my neighbors just planted. I'm like, you assholes. So I just it's pitch black. There's no illumination at all. So I creep up within 5 feet of these stupid things right behind them. And I just like, what's up, bitches? And they just scatter. I'm like, you guys have no. I don't understand how that animal still exists.
Those must be just some neighborhood deer because
they're dumb as fuck.
Man, like you get
whitetail are usually pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
Like if the flag goes up, you're fine.
You're
if
done.
that flag goes, if it goes up, they're just like, and then they.
They wind you. They're off.
They run into cars and shit all the time.
Yeah,
it's got to be something with
saw
the
like
vision.
3 or 4 of them just on the drive.
Yeah, there's dead fucking deer all over.
A lot of backstraps sitting on the side of the road.
Yeah. You just gotta. I don't know how long it's been dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
it's dry aged.
About that. Cool. Well, look, we got to get out of here, but before we do, tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs and what should they expect to see from you guys over at Black Rifles? Marty starting up Coffee or Die again, or what's going on over there?
I don't know. And
still early.
Yeah. The content is spinning back up. You know, it's not irreverent like it was back in the day because we're a publicly traded company, but it's good. It's good, and Jack is producing some awesome long form stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that. He's doing. Tell everybody. We haven't had Jack on yet, but it's out now. The Fallujah documentary.
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
Just what I saw from it, just basically the B-rolls from it. It looks really good. And I was talking to a Phantom Fury Marine about it yesterday, actually. And yeah, it's a good story that needs to be told. So I'm really glad that's happening. Outside of that, I don't really know what's going on with Black Rifle other than we got an energy drink coming out.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, that'll be good because the canned coffee right now has a lot of milk in it, and that's just not great on a hot day. As Ron Burgundy said.
Yeah. Milk was a bad choice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I appreciate you coming today and having this conversation. I'll see you tomorrow. Then I'll see you again Monday.
Yeah. Red Leader standing by the way.
Yeah. Red, that's... Yeah, you're a...
And I am suppressed, shadow banned, whatever you want to call it, so you have to type it in exactly.
Same.
Red Leader _ standing by.
Red Leader, one word, _ standing by, one word.
If you type in Tyr Symank, you'll come up with 2 Nigerian profiles before you type it.
Nice. Are they princes at all? Are you giving them money, or what's going on there?
They've been reported so many times.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Doesn't violate our community standards. Yeah, I'm blue checked. So, know blue check, it's not me.
Yeah, that's stupid. Anyways, I'm the same. You have to type in my whole fucking name.
Yeah. I blame Tulsi for this.
They hate me. Yeah. Maybe she can undo some of it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Yep. And thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.